Alright, hey everyone, thanks for joining this video. My name's Sam. I've been asked by a few people to put some tips together on taking photography of reef tanks in particular. I figure if I can do it, I picked it up in a couple of months, just trying some things and some different settings and reading up a bit online and real official qualifications, already training with photography, so if I can do that, I'm sure others can. So I thought I'd pop together a few series of real basic videos on just what to do, what to look for, and how to get the most out of your shots and make your corals, fish and tank look as best as it possibly can. So today's video is really about just equipment, on what sort of stuff to look for. I'm not going to get caught up in brands. One thing we do really probably want to look for, and this series will focus on DSLRs. There's a few tips out there and things you can do with phone cameras or GoPros and stuff like that. But this will focus on DSLRs mainly because I feel like you get the best results from them, and they can be a little bit daunting to learn. So without further ado, I guess I'll introduce you to my basic old workhorse. Don't be fooled into thinking that I've got the most expensive camera out there. This is a Canon 7D that I bought secondhand a few years ago. These Canons, there's a 7D Mark II out now. This is just the original 7D Mark I. I think they pull about $400 now. They're not really expensive. Don't get me wrong, I'd really love to have a 5D Mark IV, but I don't quite have $3.5–4 grand to go buying a new camera body when the 7D is really doing a good job. I have hired the better cameras before, and whilst they do a decent job, they're really not that much better than what you can get out of these, and I'm sure I'm still only utilizing probably 70% of what this camera can do. So basically, when you're looking for a DSLR to purchase, if you don't have one already, Canon, Nikon, doesn't matter. You're probably going to want something that's a crop sensor. Full frame sensor will limit your lens choices a bit, so crop sensor, it sounds weird, but it's probably a better option because it's going to allow you to pick some more lenses. Your full frame lenses will still work. So yeah, I've got this Canon 7D. I'm sure there's Nikon equivalents. There's better Canons, there's worse Canons. To be honest, the camera body is not going to make or break your photos. Your lens is where it's going to be. So if you've got a budget to work with, try not to spend too much on the camera body. Spend more on the lens. To be honest, I'd probably spend maybe about a third of the money on the body and 2/3 of your money on the lens. So in this instance, if you had say you had $1,200 to work with, set yourself up with a photography gear, which is a decent budget, but it'll buy you pretty nice gear. You pick up a 7D for about $400, and then I'd buy a Canon Macro. This is one of their top of the line lenses, a 100mm f2.8L. But don't get caught up on the lens. Just at this stage, it's really just about you sort of working out your budget on the body. So work out what you can spend, and then look at around about a third of that on the body. And 2/3 on a primary lens. So that really covers off your body. Don't worry too much about the different settings and stuff it has. The main thing is that it's got a manual mode, because that's what it's basically taking photos of things inside your fish tank is not your most common setting, so your auto settings and stuff wig out a little bit. I'd really look for manual settings when you're shooting your tank, so get something that's got a full manual mode. If you want LCD that flips out or just on the back, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. You're gonna just want a good eyepiece. You probably, to get the most out of your purchase on a camera like this, you're probably going to want to have a couple lenses. I got a couple here to show you some different examples. As mentioned earlier, this is my macro lens. This is what I use for all my top-down shots, and a lot of my portraits, and even some of my full tank shots. It's a 100mm zoom, which is a fairly large zoom. It doesn't zoom in or out. It's 100mm. That's the range. That's where it goes. So most people think that you're spending a lot of money. This is a brand new lens. Will be about $1,000. You can pick them up secondhand for maybe $700. They hold their value pretty well. They're a quality bit of glass. If you're not sure on which macro to use, see what people are talking about with their camera bodies. But with the Canons, I definitely recommend their 100mm macros. You want something that's a dedicated macro lens, and basically what will make the difference between a macro, well, to me anyway, what makes the difference with a macro lens is obviously your zoom, but also how close your minimum focus distance is. So on this lens here, your minimum focus distance is 0.30 of a meter, so 30 centimeters, which means the closest you can get to something is 30 centimeters for it to get focused. You'll find some of your other lenses, like this is a zoom. Let me have a look what the minimum focus distance on this is, because it'll say 70 centimeters. This is going to be 70 centimeters away for it to focus, which is a fair way, particularly if you're doing top downs. Like if you're putting this lens into the tank and you're going to be 70 centimeters away, like you're not going to get that far. Even 30 centimeters is really testing it with this. So there are some tricks you can do with some extension tubes and that, but the point of that story is that a dedicated macro lens has got a shorter minimum focusing distance, which is where you really want to be. Look for something as short as you can. The next thing you want to look for is something, it's at the aperture level, and it's rated on lenses. If you're not familiar with it, it basically has an F in front of it, which tells you the maximum aperture of the lens. So Canon tend to describe their lenses, and this one's a 100mm zoom f2.8 L. L just means it's their top shelf lens, but the 2.8 is basically the speed of the lens. It's the maximum aperture that you can run. The lower that number, in short, we'll go into those details in another series soon, but the lower that number, the better, essentially. You see some of your cheaper lenses, or the lenses that come with the cameras, will have an aperture of like f5 or f4.8 to 8.0 or something like that. They're going to struggle a little bit. They're your cheaper lens. Probably when you're building up your kit, you've got your decent DSLR body. You don't want to let yourself down to the lens. The lens is the most important thing. So I'd recommend getting something pretty fast. This is the fastest lens I've got. It's actually not one of the, you can tell the Canons have got this red line on them, which tells it that it's one of their L lenses. This is one of their non-L lenses. It's 85mm zoom, but it's an aperture of f1.8, which means it's pretty speedy. I've taken some wicked shots of this, and it was a pretty cheap lens. The one catch with this one is its minimum focusing distance is 85 centimeters. So it means you're taking pictures a fair way from the tank, and doesn't really work top downs in the tank. But I picked this lens up for about 250 bucks, I think, in really good shape. And it's really fast. So when you're taking pictures of fish or corals from outside of your tank, it's a ripper. But yeah, not quite as useful as this wonderful macro. That's probably all you need to know about different equipment. Probably one other thing I get here, I guess, is the Avast porthole, which is basically allows you to put your lens body in there. Then you can dip that in the water. It's got little set screws that hold it in place. Basically allows you to, when it's zoomed in, when it's screwed on, allows you to put that into your tank, and then obviously take pictures from the top down. Gives you the best view of your corals, to be honest. You get some wicked shots of those. Whilst it's nice to have the Rigid Avast unit, it's honestly just a bit of plastic with some set screws in it. I've seen people use lids off, what are they called, Ferrero Rocher chocolate boxes. They got that, it's almost like a little clear plastic boat. They just float them in the water and then take pictures. That works really well too, so I mean, get creative. I was lucky enough that my local fish shop lent me this on a long-term loan, on the proviso that if they ever needed it back, I'd get it back to them ASAP. So big shout out to Dave for that, I appreciate that. I've still got it made and it's still in good shape. Whenever you need it back, just let me know. Yeah, otherwise we can go into flash photography a bit later. It's something I'm just learning myself at the moment. I haven't found the need for it just yet, but others are saying they're getting pretty cracking results with it, so I've been playing with flash. Most of your DSLRs come with a built-in flash. You don't want to use that. It'll just reflect off the glass and give you all sorts of grief. Yeah, just to summarize, I guess you want to spend somewhere around the vicinity of 400 plus on a body and 600 plus on a lens. That's the price point you're looking at breaking into if you want to play with DSLR photography on your aquarium. I'm not saying you can't do it for less, just probably that's about the minimum I'd be looking with. Probably, yeah, $1,000 to $1,200. And that way you'll get some good gear, and like even if it's secondhand, you'll be playing with top shelf gear. And if you've got really good lenses and a half decent body, you can't go too wrong. You'll be surprised, even if you've never had a camera before, which I never had until I got this. how quickly you'll be able to get good snaps. And if you're uncertain, you can always shoot on auto at first, and it'll get you 70% of the way there. And most of those shots will be good enough to print out on the poster if you wanted to. But we'll go over some tips which will get you even better. Anyway, cheers. I forgot to mention the other day when talking about the lenses that you can pick up some cheap lenses that give a really good bang for buck. I know I said that use about 1/3 of your budget on camera and 2/3 on the lens, but if you're looking to break into DSLR photography on a budget, I know Canon, I'm sure Nikon have got something similar, but Canon have got these brands, they call them, I think they call them pancake lenses, but they're 50mm, they're really cheap. You can pick them up secondhand for like 80 to 100 bucks. And they're, as we talked about before, their aperture is f1.8, so they're a pretty fast lens. Obviously they're a fixed zoom, they're really light, they're a plastic body, they're a pretty cheap lens, but you can get some really good shots from them. They're obviously not as good as your $1,000 macro lens, but we're talking $1,000 to maybe 80 bucks, so there's a big difference. These will get you a long way there, and it's a good lens to start with if you're getting into the game. You can see here the size difference of the lens. This is the Canon 2470 f2.8L. One of their sort of flagship multi-purpose lenses. They cost a fortune. I was lucky to buy that one second hand, but it was still near $1,000 compared to the little Canon 50mm cheap plastic body. But yeah, so I mean you can see the size difference, and also if I tip the camera up, just like the diameter difference. It's pretty crazy. If I take the size of the hole you're working with is a fair bit different too. But I'll take a couple of shots with this 50mm lens and you can see what sort of quality you can get from them. Cheers. Yeah, so you can see a couple of shots we're getting here. This is with the $50 lens. I mean, they come up pretty nice, and granted I've had a bit of practice with these, but if most people get shots like that, they're pretty happy, and I'm no exemption. I quite like them. I couldn't see a massive difference between the for those photos with a $50 lens and a $1,000 lens. So if you're looking for somewhere to start, particularly with shots outside of your tank, that 50mm cheap and fast lens will do the trick. Alright, that's about all I got for the first video in the series. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get some use out of it. I've got some ideas for what we can do in the next few videos, starting from like your first shots through to how to touch them up and make them look right on your computer. So you'll know when you take a lot of photos, the colors, like you can probably see on the camera now, because I'm using my phone to record this, the tank looks purple behind me. That's thanks to the LEDs, and a lot of camera lenses have a lot of trouble picking them up, so we can go through how to touch those up. But to be honest, I want you guys to drive this. There's no use me telling you what I think you need to know. You tell me what you want to know. I'll do a video on it and put it online. If it helps one person out there, it's been worth my while. If it helps more than that, then bonus. Yeah, nothing else to say other than that. Thanks for watching, and yeah, feel free to comment if you have any questions. Cheers guys, bye.